Hey, what's going on, team? And welcome back to another edition of the Ask Matty Show. Very excited to be here with you guys today. You guys might notice that Gavin is not here today. And no, Gavin has not left our program. He's still very much a part of it. But we are transitioning into a solo show for the Ask Matty Show. We will still have the same great questions you guys are bringing. We are still going to provide you guys with a lot of value each and every show. But we're going to be moving forward with a slightly different format, and I'm very excited about it. Today, you guys brought us a lot of questions about Casper. We're going to be talking a lot about Casper today. You guys asked about XLM, you guys asked about Alchemy Pay, and then we're also going to be looking at, can I start with $100? And we're going to be taking a look at that, showing you guys some resources that we have for you guys to be able to look at budgets and figure out a plan for yourselves when it comes to crypto as a whole. So before we get into the show though, guys, it's important that you guys understand that we come from cryptocharge.com. It is a education-based platform. We have live shows Monday through Friday. We have our coin library. We have our Discord community where we're able to answer you guys' questions. We have leverage trade ideas. We have a plethora of resources there for you guys. So make sure you guys check that out. With code YouTube, you guys get 30 days free plus a 50% discount on any membership you guys want to pick from. So $49 a month or $4.99 for the year. Let's get into it. Let's talk a little bit about your guys' questions. So the first one we have here from Transformation Central YouTube is, it's about time for another Casper video, especially after the recent upgrades and past proposals like token burns, etc. We need some updated targets for this bull run. So let's get into it. I prepared a little bit of background information for you guys. I think it's important that we touch on some of the upgrades, updates, things that are going on in the Casper network. And I think that it's a lot of excitement. And I'm very, very bullish on both the team behind the Casper Association, including our CTO, Michael Stoyer, as well as some of the partnerships we've had that have come online, as well as some of the upgrades mentioned in this question here. So first and foremost, guys, make sure you guys, when looking at a project, right, no matter what it is, go on X, go on YouTube, follow their verified accounts. It's a great way to stay up to date, see what's going on with the project, and kind of just keep a pulse on your investment, right? So we have first and foremost here, the Casper community has decided the 5th and 6th governance votes took place over the past 3 days, and Casper validators decided to 1, enable the burn mechanism, and 2, implement a minimum validator fee mechanism. So 1 is very, very bullish because it adds a deflationary effect to the network. So we know that right now there is roughly an 8% in inflation rate on a yearly basis, right? So every year, 8% more supply comes on network. Now, we know that there's also staking rewards right now. That's right around the 15% mark. So as long as you guys are staking, you're not only outpacing the inflation rate, but you're also earning some interest. So that's kind of baked into the model. Now, with this fee burning mechanism, what we're going to see is supply removed from the ecosystem, right? So every time you mint a smart contract, every time you mint an NFT, every time you guys stake, every time you guys create a new token, right? All of those actions cost gas fees. And now those gas fees will be 100% burned. So that's very exciting. The second portion of this is going to be implementing a minimum validator fee mechanism. So you guys will notice that some validators offer a 0% commission fee, meaning they're basically doing this out of the goodness of their hearts. It's not a cheap, it's not a difficult thing to do per se, but it's not a cheap thing to do. You still have to have a dedicated server that costs a monthly fee. You have to put up 1 million Casper in order to be a part of the pool. So right now that's roughly $10,000 US to be able to be participating as a validator. So what we're going to be, essentially implementing is a minimum validator fee. So this is going to incentivize, validators to keep doing their thing, to stay a part of the pool, to be paid for their hard work. So these are two very, very bullish things. We also saw, as far as expanding for US network exposure, is going to be for Gate US. So there is the, of course, international Gate exchange, and we have the Gate US exchange. Casper will be listed on the 25th. So tomorrow we will see another exposure for US ability to purchase Casper. That's very, very exciting. Now, I know this isn't Kraken, I know this isn't Coinbase, I know this isn't Binance, and that's what we're all waiting for. But every time we get another listing, that's more exposure, right? And that's net positive. So I know this is something we've been talking about. Here's another US listing. Love to see that. We also saw another announcement from Casper here. Sure, it's summer, but while we're on vacation, Casper and AmeriCorp are still working hard. This is a partnership that we talked about previously, but this is going to be for the parking industry. So building the parking MVP to bring transparency, automation, and real-time payments to the $144 billion industry. Can include internal treasury management, tokenized ownership, a variety of use cases. So just reminding you guys, or maybe you guys are new to the channel here, of some of the partnerships that we've had on the Casper network. We also know that Wise Tokens is going to be bringing liquid staking to the Casper ecosystem. So the ability to earn interest on your Casper tokens without having the lock period. That's also very bullish. We also saw this most recently. Casper developers can now access trusted execution environments, TEEs, through Blocky's T's attestation service. Let's read a little bit from Michael Stoyer on that. Why this matters: you have scalability, heavy computations that don't clog the chain, security, taking sensitive data like finance, healthcare, and enterprise operations can run privately, right? And this is one of the biggest components that a lot of people don't realize with blockchain or DLT, is they look at, certain transactions, right? And they go, well, that's fantastic that we can verify it on chain, but what about my privacy, right? What about certain sensitive things, especially things like healthcare, right? We want to make sure that we have verifiable records like healthcare records, but we're not putting all of that sensitive data on chain. This allows us to have oracles that point to certain pieces of data. It allows us to access certain pieces of data or tokenize or create immutable records of that data without sharing all of that private data. So that's very, very exciting. And again, not a sexy component when it comes to the DLT space, but it's a very essential component of the DLT space. As far as some of the things that are not necessarily like super partnership related or like upgrade related, Michael Stoyer, since he's taken over, which, guy, by the way, guys, has been a little under a year now, which is really, really impressive for the amount of progress we've made from an organic standpoint here. Michael Stoyer has really rolled his sleeves up and gotten after it when it comes to, trying to get some real growth and adoption and progress for the network. So we put here, this was just a few days ago, September 10. I had a good meeting with the SEC yesterday to discuss the state of crypto regulations in the US, what opportunities to exist to innovate and accelerate crypto growth and adoption, and Casper Network's role in all of this. Very impressed with the new direction of the SEC and Paul Atkins. We also saw this, again, just a couple weeks ago. Thank you for everything you do in our industry, Eric Trump. Your advocacy and leadership is truly inspiring. We at Casper Network share your belief that we're on the precipice of massive growth for blockchain. Thanks for meeting with me today. And we also have, of course, you guys are familiar with Miss Cynthia Loomis. Wonderful meeting with Senator Cynthia Loomis today and her staff discussing topics like Casper Network's origin in Big Wyoming, the role of regulation in our industry, reshoring projects, especially to the most crypto-forward state in the nation, and taxation of staking rewards for proof of stake, which Casper is. Thank you, Senator, for the warm homecoming to the state where Casper began and all you do to move our industry forward, right? So those are some components I think you guys need to notice and understand that there is a real strides happening both on the development side of things, on the partnership side of things, as well as the, just overall front when it comes to the regulatory side of things. Last thing I want you guys to remember when we're looking at the Casper opportunity, I know some people get frustrated with it, right? And they're like, oh man, I really thought Casper was going to do this by now, or, they have timeline expectations, or they're frustrated with the volatility. I want you guys to look at the left side of the screen here. There's a very important component there. What do you guys see under market cap? $125 million. Okay. So that makes it a very, very small capitalization coin. That's nothing in the crypto space. So with small market cap comes opportunity, right? Meaning that with $125 million market cap, $1.3 billion makes it a 10x from current market, right? You look at XRP, you look at a lot of other stuff that we have out there and things that we've been invested in for a while. And you look at the amount of money required to make that same 10x happen. It's billions and billions of dollars, right? We're talking about a little over $1 billion to make that happen. So with small capitalization comes more volatility. Okay, so that's part of the game here. We've talked about a lot of the components that help offset some of this volatility, including the staking rewards you're earning, right? So each day that you stay staked up, your cost basis comes down, right? Because dollar amount contributed and number of coins that you've acquired, that number of coins continues to go up, but the dollar contribution stays the same. So things to consider, guys, when it comes to Casper here. I hope that this was helpful for you guys, kind of painting a little bit of picture as far as a Casper update. We're going to take a look at the charts as well here and kind of look at and see what's going on with those targets. Let's go to the Casper chart here. So let's go ahead and strip this down. I'm going to take this all the way down. Let's make it butt naked. And let's come out to the weekly chart. So again, a lot of you guys have looked at the macro chart here and you're like, man, this looks kind of ugly. I don't disagree that we have yet to really reclaim a very important weekly level here to prove that there's an uptrend. I think the reason that I'm not so frustrated with this is because the distance or the percentage gain to that level that would essentially insinuate an uptrend is not very far away. So if we look at the weekly chart here, we can see that roughly 2.3 to, let's just mark up a second level here, to like 3 cents, right? So 2.3 to 3 cents is that area of interest that we need to reclaim. We can see that it was a huge area of support in here from, let's call it June of 2022 before we lost it back here on June 3rd. Again, lots of fundamental catalysts that are no longer present, right? That caused some of this excessive selling, right? We no longer have Casper Labs confusing people, making false promises, right? We have now a truly decentralized network that's making meaningful progress since then, right? So we don't have those same catalysts there. We've seen the tokens that were awarded to Casper Labs reappropriated back to the Casper association, right? So we don't have that fear of that selling pressure. So many negative components have been ripped away from this project. And honestly, I'm grateful for that. So when we look at the measured move here, right, we see, okay, we need to get roughly 140%, maybe a 200% back to those levels. Once we get back into these pockets though, those are liquid pockets that market makers manipulated for hundreds and hundreds of days. So I've even pointed this on other projects. Like I've pointed this on Polkadot, pointed this on API 3. There's a lot of examples where it's like, okay, when we reclaim that liquid pocket, there's really not a lot holding us back from making meaningful strides from those levels. So what I did originally, guys, right, when I very first, before this big crash had happened in here, what I was doing is I was grabbing some of these candle closes up towards on the daily level here. I'm going to show you guys on the daily level. I was using some of these candles around like the $1.30 region to be able to grab our Fibonacci range. What I've done recently though, is I've taken the 22-cent double top in here instead, right? So the very liquid top in here, right? No ifs, ands, or buts if there was actual business done here right around 22 cents. And I'm taking it down to the low that was struck here November 3. That was 0.006, right? So again, just perspective from the low that was set here and everyone said completely dead chain. We're up about 55% from those levels. So here's what I'm looking at, guys. And again, you can chop this up however you want. This is not financial advice. We have on the website for you guys in the coin library section, these targets laid out for you guys, including a full-on written analysis of, what we think are the expectations short-term, mid-term, and long-term. But you guys can use any of these extensions as well as retracements as your areas of interest, okay? And again, it's always going to depend on your risk appetite, your entry, your goals, right? Everyone's got different risk appetites and goals. One thing we can look at here is we can look at the double top, right? You can always use liquid double tops as an area of interest here. So from current market to that 22-cent area is roughly a 22x opportunity, right? So that's in itself already huge. If we're using the extensions, again, I'm not using any of these crazy candles up here, right? I'm not using $5. I'm not even using the lows over here, 214. I'm not using any of this. I'm using the liquid double top in here from 2021. We can see that we get 58 cents, and then almost $1 towards that 4.236. So we measure out from current market to that 1.618 over a 3637x to the 2.618, we get roughly a 60x, and then almost up into that 4.236. You're just under a 100x opportunity. So if you're asking yourself, is Casper still potentially a 100x opportunity? Yeah, it possibly could be, right? And again, the big thing that makes some of this stuff possible is you take the 13 billion supply and you multiply that by roughly $1, right? We're asking for like a 13 to 15 billion dollar market cap to make that happen. It's very possible, right? Like we're not asking for hundreds of billions. We're not asking for trillions, which some of these projects that people give predictions for, including an XRP, they're asking for a 5, 6, 7 trillion dollar market cap in order to make it happen this cycle, right? And it's a little bit unrealistic. Seeing a small cap go from 200 million to 10, 13, 15 billion, not that unrealistic, okay? So I just want you guys to be aware of that. Let's move on to a few other questions that we have here. Orbin Nazin, I'm not gonna try to guess your username, 9577. The XLM hype doesn't show on price. Okay, so we did a big show on XLM the other day, guys. If you guys didn't watch that, go back, watch the XLM video. It did very well. We talked a lot about the fundamental progress on XLM. And it's important that you guys have that balance when you guys are doing your research, making your picks, deciding where you want to put your money, right? Do the fundamental research, then look at the technical opportunity. And if they both look copacetic, then it's a go, right? But a lot of you guys look at price, you guys don't look at the fundamentals or vice versa, and you have a difficult time painting that picture for you. I would strongly disagree that XLM is one of those assets that doesn't represent the progress that we've seen from a fundamental level. And remember, there's not always a one-for-one on a fundamental level of, oh, we got a new partnership, price should do X from here, right? Or we should see an immediate 40% pop in price based on the news. Sometimes you do see news impact things very, very greatly, and sometimes the market's just not in a technical spot to support a rally in that environment, right? If the market is in a choppy phase or the market as a whole is selling off and you get a positive partnership, what is the likeliness of that news impacting price at that moment? Very, very low, okay? And I want you guys to remember that. Now, long term, I want you guys to position yourselves in assets and opportunities where if, let's say, World War III breaks out, right? And the whole market crumbles, the bull market's over, alt season's off, right? Everything doesn't go as to a plan. I want you to look at everything in your portfolio and be like, damn, that sucks, right? Price sucks. But do I hold garbage, right? Everything I hold in my portfolio, is it worth something on a fundamental level? And I would hope the answer is yes. XLM absolutely checks those boxes. So again, guys, when we look at the XLM chart here, first of all, from the 2024 low here, so from July of 2024, price did a 700% move and still is up 388% from the 2024 low. If we measure it from the 2020 low, so we look at the progress from the last 5 years, right? We've seen a 2,200% increase in XLM price and currently up about 1,300% from the 2020 low. So we're seeing that period of higher highs and higher lows. And when you look at XLM from a grander perspective here, and again, I know that nobody wants to look at these kinds of charts, right? We want to look at the Coinbase chart on the daily chart and say, what's happening today for today. When you look at this in here, right? This is the most classic bullish continuation structure you guys could possibly see. Right. And you look at the overall compression in here, it's been compression from 2017 forward. So we created this high in here. We basically been just compressing for the last 2,835 days. We've seen what happens when you get compressed for this long, right? We've seen what happens when you start to reclaim and start to flip some of these levels in here, especially like us flipping this July high here from 2023, flipping that over here in April of 25. Remember, guys, this took a while. So from that high being broken out to the back test in here, 650 days. If we measure from the actual breakout of this level to the back test, took about 160, 150 days to get that back test in there. You're creating a beautiful W in here, right? This W up in here, beautiful W that's been forming in here. We're on the verge of a breakout, right? And that breakout from current market could yield some still pretty good results, right? We've talked about in the last episode, again, what is the best worst case scenario for XLM? Is the long-term hold from current market price? Probably not. Is it a good cycle play still? 100%. To that 4.236 is almost a 10x opportunity. We could see more, right? It's still possible you see more, but I still want you guys to manage your bags from a multi-step exit. Let's move on to another question here from 180 Ahmed. Thoughts about Alchemy Pay, tickers ACH. Let's go ahead and take a look at ACH. Again, I haven't really kept up with ACH from a fundamental perspective personally. Again, you can only keep up with so much, especially when you look at the market now, thousands and thousands of tokens, right? There's only so much you can pay attention to, which is why I also encourage you guys to be a little bit more limited as far as what's on your watch list, what's in your portfolio, right? We can't be exposed to all, 10,000 coins out there, even if you had $1 to put in each, right? It's not very effective, right? You can't keep track of all that. It's going to be very difficult to create TP plans, and fees are going to eat into that pretty heavily. So let's take a look at Alchemy Pay from a technical perspective here. I want to say that Alchemy Pay's biggest proposition value, at least when I first remember seeing this long time ago, was essentially mobile payments at checkout, point of sale, crypto payments, right? That was, I think, their biggest proposition. May have changed, maybe pivoted, maybe they've added to their suite. You guys let me know in the comments if I'm overlooking Alchemy Pay and if there's something huge fundamentally that I'm missing here. But let's take a look at things from a technical perspective. So we do see that there is a nice clean uptrend that's been forming here, right? You guys see that there's like a bit of an ascending trend line here. However, from a upper bound perspective, I would say this has been a huge ceiling of resistance. So Alchemy Pay is continuously getting stuff between 4.2 and 5 cents, right? Every time we encounter this level, huge sell walls, right? And a lot of this is market manipulation, right? Market makers control the markets. They're a necessary evil, necessary component, right? But they're also a cruel mistress, and that's just an unfortunate component of the markets. When we get into certain order blocks, market makers can thin their order books or thicken them up, and they'll do that when they start to see that there's enough orders in an area of interest in order to manipulate price back down to another area of interest. So we can see that there's even down here a pretty heavy floor of support that's been formed here, somewhere in like the 1.3 to 1.7 cent region. So basically, since February of 23 forward, you have a sideways market in here, which is not a bad thing, right? It's not great because if you're a bull, you're like, damn, like I'm not making any progress here, but you're also not setting lower lows and lower highs. So I would say we're not in a downtrend. And if you look even further left here, right, we've set a significant higher low from the 2021 low. So that was 0.001. You set a higher low here in 2022 at 0.007. Set a higher low here in 23 at 1.3 cents. And then we've basically been holding like 1.7 cents, which is not a massive higher low, but it is nonetheless a higher low. So we have cleaned out the imbalance here. We don't see any imbalance left behind here, right? You have the support level in here, 1, 2, 3, clean those out, right? But you do have a strong floor support in here. I would say if you're going to make a purchase, you've mitigated most of your risks. You guys know that I always advise against buying anything near an all-time high. But if you guys are near that key support level, turn on that DCA, either set a limit towards, the bottom of the range, maybe a combination of both, right? We show you guys on the website in the consistent investor strategy, how you guys can go about that. You guys can deploy a strategy that's good for you, but this is a good area of interest. Let's take this away here. Let's look at two different fib ranges. So let's look at the more recent one here, right? We have a triple top, and then we've got the low in here. So we can see that it suggests somewhere between like 7.7 and 17 cents as those next big areas of interest. So roughly a 3x to upwards of maybe an 8, 9x from current market. Now we can also also bring our fib range in from the high here. I'm not going to use this wick up here. I'm going to use this wick over here from 2021. And let's see if there's any overlap. We like to sometimes look to see if there's areas of confluence. So we can see over here, the 7.2, 7.5 cent region is an area of confluence, 10 to 11 cents. And then you get from some of the extensions up here, 32 cents and 34 cents is another area of interest here. So again, make sure you guys are doing some sort of multi-step TP exiting here, right? We want to look at least 2 to 3, sometimes 4 to 5, depending on how big your bag is. Some of you guys want to trim and rotate. But I think that overall, you've mitigated most of your risk. You're at a key support level, and there's decent overall upside reward, right? When we start to see it as like a 2x or a 3x up into those areas of interest, now we're looking at like ETH-related rewards, and it really doesn't make sense, right? Let's take a look at another question. I think we've got one more question. We got 2 more questions here. We'll get through these quickly. So Banker John asked, of all the crypto assets you currently own, which ones are you going to DCA right now? Great question. So I'm going to pull out my watch list here. I'm not going to get super into the charts on this one, guys. You guys can check us out on cryptocharge.com for that. We have our show that we do Monday through Friday, covering everything that we're doing on a daily basis if things are changing. I'll let you guys know what DCAs to turn on and off, or what I would turn on and off. Some of the big opportunities I think right now that are just auto DCAs, like meaning like you don't even have to think about it. And again, this is always going to be contingent on averages. Some people, for example, have averages that are significantly lower than that, so the DCA doesn't matter to them or doesn't make sense for them. But if we're looking at just overall risk to reward and where we are structurally, H&T Helium Network, automatic DCA for me, easy pickup right there. Casper is also an easy DCA, right? Now I know Uphold does take a fair amount of fees, but they do offer the DCA feature. That's an easy DCA. API 3 is 100% back in the DCA zone right now. Velo's in the DCA zone. So is Sushi and Filecoin. Those are some of the big ones I would look at. Now, some of the big boys that we've talked about, like HBAR and Algorand, are also offering good higher low opportunities right now. I definitely wouldn't ignore those. But if we're talking about, hey, where does my money go the furthest where I don't even have to think about turning the DCA off anytime soon? Those are some of the big opportunities that I'd be looking at for you guys to consider there. Last question we're going to look at is from Patraporn Olivius. Can I start with $100? Absolutely. So I'm going to show you guys really quickly here, just flip through a few slides of our consistent investor strategy here. We're not going to go through the whole thing. The whole thing is on our website. So again, guys, with code YouTube, you guys get 30 days free. So you guys can go on the website, and all these resources are available during your free trial. So you guys can rip through all of this. Day 29, you're like, Matt, cool. I've ripped through a whole bunch of stuff. Not for me. Not a big deal. I do not care. I'd rather you guys watch all the stuff, decide it's not for you, and raid as many resources as you want. So this is one of them. It's about a 50-minute video. But if you guys are new to the space, or you're like, man, I've been trying to do crypto and it just seems like no matter what I try, it doesn't seem like anything's clicking, this is the video for you, okay? So in this strategy, we talk about determining a budget. So to set a regular monthly or weekly or bi-weekly budget for your crypto investing, first to determine an amount you can comfortably afford after covering all of your bills and saving goals. This is so important, guys. A lot of people will look at it and they're like, well, based on the market, maybe I should invest more, or maybe I'll pull from my emergency fund to be able to invest in crypto, or what if I defer a car payment so that I can, no, right? We're talking about a budget you can afford. So I love the question, can I start with $100? Yes, you 100% can. If you guys are looking at a budget, a monthly, bi-weekly budget, whatever it may be, try to stay consistent with that amount. It's better to undershoot on that budget and then add when you can. If you get an additional allowance in your budget, where you decide, hey, I don't want to do this entertainment thing that's in my budget or whatever it is, and add to it, that's great. But stick to a consistent amount that you know for a fact that you can afford, right? If that's $100 a month, fantastic. If it's $50 a month, fantastic. If it's $1,000 a month, great. But don't overextend yourself. When you overextend yourself, you're no longer creating a budget. Now you are, buying into the emotional side of investing. You're FOMOing it. You are allowing the market to manipulate the way that you interact with it instead of making a controlled and consistent contribution. We talk about, of course, the difference of different types of diversification, too many assets, of a concentrated portfolio versus an over-diversified portfolio. We talk about the importance of different types of assets, smart contracts, NFTs, supply chain management, decentralized identity, tokenized real estate. Give you guys some good examples of this here. We talk about DCA, the pros and cons of DCA, limit-based ordering, pros and cons, the importance of setting aside dry powder for you guys. We give you guys multiple examples here of how you guys can go about it based on current market conditions, when to employ DCA versus limit-based orderings, talk you guys through Coinbase Advanced and Coinbase One, cold storage, how to identify entries, right? We give you guys the basics of that, identifying exits, giving you guys that multi-step, determining if a long-term hold is even worth it for you, right? All things to consider there. And of course, we go through through this in a video format, very slow. You guys can pause, you guys can put it on half speed, 2x speed, whatever you guys want. But we have a lot of resources for you guys on the website to check out. I hope this was helpful for you guys. We would do the Ask Matty show every single Wednesday. We'll be back with you guys again on Monday for our after hours show, but I hope to see you guys before that in the Discord, on the website. See you guys soon.